You know, I don't know exactly how much credit you can give to George R. R. Martin for this, but the man is a pretty good music writer, at least when it comes to lyrics. So much so that when HBO adapted the series, they brought a little more to the jingles, at least a little more than Roy Doctrice in the audiobooks could. I swear, all the songs are just Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with different lyrics. Enough about that though. Why don't we go over the songs that one way or another made it to the show, starting with easily the most popular.
Yes, now the rains, we bore his laws, and not a soul to hear. Good voice!
The Reigns of Castamere. With all sorts of covers from the heavy metal master Jonathan Young to the one-man a cappella Peter Hollins, most of you probably already know the lore, so on this matter I will be brief. But back in the past, to before Tywin was Lord Paramount of the Westerlands, the Reigns, along with the Tarbecks, rebelled against his father Tytos, who was a bit of a laughingstock of the realm. In response to this treachery, Tywin called his own banners and massacred them, eradicating the families, making them extinct. It was so brutal and quick that the war was immortalized in the ballad The Reigns of Castamere. With that brief rundown, though, we can go into the nitty-gritty of the song, starting with the title, The Reigns of Castamere. The first thing you might notice is that the family, House Reign, and the title are spelled differently, R-E-Y-N-E for the family and R-A-I-N for the song. This at first confused me in how to spell the name properly, but it's likely a reference to how Tywin exterminated the family. You see, the Reigns could not compete with Tywin's forces, and so retreated to their castle. Yet, not confident they had the men to defend the walls, they retreated to their empty mines, which made numbers practically useless. There was no hope of victory, but maybe they could convince Tywin that the cost of battle would be too great. Tywin, of course, picked option C. He sealed the mines with rock and soil, and honestly, he probably could have just left them there to starve, but there was the chance that they could dig their way out. So he also had his army divert a stream into one of the main entrances, drowning everyone who was inside. Now, how about we get to the first actual line of the song? And for anyone who has standards for singing, I apologize. And who are you? The proud Lord said that I must bow so low. This line is clearly being spoken or sung by the Lord of Castamere in opposition to Tywin, his father Tytos, or both. It shows that he may understand the Lannisters were once a great house, but that they are a shadow now. Only a cat of a different coat, that's all the truth I know. In a coat of gold, a coat of red, a lion still has claws. And mine are long and sharp, my lord, as long and sharp as yours. This line references the sigils of the Lannisters and Reigns, both being lions, the only real difference being the color of the fur, the Lannister sigil being golden, while the Reigns are red. Yet despite the golden sigil being more impressive in the end, it doesn't matter as they are just as powerful, since they compare their claws being just as dangerous. And so he spoke, that Lord of Castamere. This confirms what we suspected at the beginning, that those lines were from the Lord of Castamere, the head of House Reign. But now the Reigns, we bore his halls, with no one there to hear. Yes, now the Reigns, we bore his halls, and not a soul to hear. Finishing off with this last line from the song, which paints a pretty depressing picture, that despite the proud words of House Reign, he, and now his line, are extinct, and as the Reigns fall down on the walls of Castamere, no one is left to hear. Well, the lyrics are pretty solid, and the show version is quite the toe tapper, but we all know the real reason why this is such an iconic song. How in the books and show, before the massacre of the Red Wedding, the band begins to play this lullaby. And even if you don't recognize it, when you hear it, there's a flush of dread, because it sounds familiar. Maybe you recognize the tune from the scene where Tyrion whistles it, though more likely it reminds you of the rendition that plays when the Lannisters are on screen. But subconsciously, when you hear it, you think of the Lannisters, and after such a grueling scene, you won't ever be able to get that tune out of your head. Is it any wonder that whenever Tywin hears of treachery, the first thing he does is send a bard to play the song, and most of the time, it's all he needs to put someone back in line? Yet finished with one Lannister song, we have another, though this one is linked to Tyrion rather than his father. Hands of Gold, a personal favorite of mine, but one that does not have as much history as Reigns of Castamere. You see, in the books, a musician writes it when he figures out the relationship between Tyrion and Shae, and his own artistic way blackmails Tyrion. Tyrion then has him killed, though admits that the song is quite nice, and he is a little sad that he never gets to hear all the lyrics, which means that Hands of Gold is an unfinished song.
For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. For hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm.
The entire song is sung by Ed Sheeran in the show, and it goes as such. He rode through the streets of the city, down from his hill on high. In this instance, he is referencing Tyrion, and the part where it says he is riding down from his hill on high is likely to portray Tyrion's status. At this point, he is the master of coins, one of the most powerful men in the realm, so to ride through the city streets is in a way beneath him. O'er the winds and the steps and the cobbles, he rode to a woman's sigh, for she was his secret treasure, she was his shame and his bliss. These next lines paint a very obvious picture of how Tyrion will travel a great distance in order to be with a woman, and some might take this differently, but I always interpreted the woman's sigh as something of indifference, perhaps due to Tyrion being a dwarf or Shae being a whore, and not one to fall in love with anyone. Naturally, her being a secret treasure is referencing how Tyrion did his best to make sure no one found out about their relationship. And a chain and a keep are nothing compared to a woman's kiss, for hands of gold are always cold, but a woman's hands are warm. Even my untrained ears can dig under the insinuation. The chain is referencing the golden hand necklace that the Hand of the King wears in the books. That's right, it's not just a pin like in the show. And a keep is another word for a home, such as a castle. And that power and a big home is nothing compared to a woman's kiss, or more likely a woman's love and affection. I also find it interesting that chains and keep can be interpreted as controlling, being locked down, shackled, meaning that these great things such as power and wealth in a way take options away from Tyrion. The next line hammers this in, as hands of gold will never keep you warm or give you love, but a woman's hands can. So, why is this sung by some random Lannister guard? No idea. As much as I enjoyed the song, I can say that the scene it was used for was completely useless and probably should have been cut. While we are on the subject, I want to go over a rendition of the song by Peter Hollins, since his video is the very first thing that comes up when you search Hands of Gold, and I bet if you're watching this, you've seen the video. But there are some extra lines on the screen right now. From what I can find, this is an entirely different song that tells the tale of a Lord of Derry in the Battle of the Bloody Meadow. There is no real connection between this song and Hands of Gold, except that both are incomplete. So that's why you have a nice song talking about a man having a secret love, and you jump to a guy screaming, "Let's go kill everyone!" The last song we'll be talking about is Jenny of Oldstones, the longest of the three songs, so buckle up.
High in the halls of the kings who are gone, Jenny would dance with her ghosts, the ones she had lost and the ones she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most.
Now, this song is very interesting as almost all the lyrics are show only. Despite it being so short, it does have quite a bit of lore behind it. The Jenny mentioned in the song and title is very likely Jenny of Oldstone, who claims to be the descendant of kings who had long since vanished, and considering that she is from Oldstone, or lives there, it's fair to assume that she is talking about House Mud, who, long before there were even 7 kingdoms, ruled over much of the Riverlands and beyond, but were destroyed when the Andals invaded and eventually fell into extinction. Their seat of power was Oldstone, which fell to ruin, likely from the Andals fighting each other in order to make their own kingdoms. So, assuming that this is the correct Jenny, the line paints a picture of Jenny dancing with ghosts in the ruins of Oldstone. Another idea, though, is that Jenny is actually dancing in King's Landing. You see, Jenny of Oldstone actually married Prince Duncan Targaryen, the eldest son to Aegon V, or Aegon the Unlikely. This was actually quite the scandal that led to a short rebellion from the Stormlands that was decided in single combat, but that is a topic for another video. Due to Jenny wedding a prince, she's likely spent a good chunk of her life in the Red Keep, which at the time had 14 dead kings, so maybe this song is talking about her time in King's Landing. Oh, and more obviously, King's Landing has a great hall, that being where the Iron Throne is, so when she is dancing in the high halls of the kings who are gone, that seems like a prime location. Either one works, and I can explain why in the next line. The one she had lost, and the one she had found, and the ones who had loved her the most. While Oldstone seems like the more proper fit, what with her dancing with ghosts that she had lost and loved seeming more likely at her home rather than in King's Landing. However, when you take into account the tragedy of Summer Hall, where her husband passed away, there's no mention of Jenny dying at Summer Hall. So maybe the ghosts she danced with that she loved and lost were her husband, with any other ghosts being those that she found. The rest of the song, however, doesn't exactly leave much to interpretation, and is kind of on the nose with what it wants you to understand. The ones who'd been gone for so very long, she couldn't remember their names. They spun her around on the damp old stones, spun away all her sorrow and pain. I mean, I can really only interpret this as her forgetting her husband, but maybe you could argue that it's simply other ghosts, people who were close to her but not as memorable as her husband of 20 years who gave up the throne for her. Who knows though, maybe she had Alzheimer's. Either way though, despite not remembering them, she still took much pleasure in dancing with them, considering doing so took away all her strife. But you see what I mean? There doesn't seem to be any underlying or double meaning with the words like Reigns of Castamere or Hands of Gold. I am skipping a few lines because they just go over how she never wants to leave her fever dream when she was twerking on those ghosts, but this line did pique my interest a bit. They danced through the day and into the night, through the snow that swept through the hall. From winter to summer, then winter again, did the walls did crumble and fall. While the first line is just more fancy way of saying she didn't want to leave, the last bit makes me wonder, till the walls did crumble and fall. Now what could that be referencing? Now this is a stretch, but maybe this is referencing to Robert's Rebellion. Duncan Targaryen was between the ages of 15 and 19 when he married Jenny. I would say it's likely that Jenny was of a similar age, meaning that she was in her late 30s after the tragedy of Summer Hall. Robert's Rebellion took place just a little over 20 years later, so we can round Jenny up to 60 years old. She could very much have still been alive, since she would only have been a few years older than Olenna Tyrell, and nearly 3 decades younger than Walder Frey. So maybe when the song speaks about the walls crumbling and falling, they mean the sack of King's Landing. It's nice, but I don't think it works. For starters, there is absolutely no mention of Jenny after the tragedy of Summer Hall, if you don't count the moment when people sing or mention her song. Not to mention, considering that Jaime killed Aerys in the throne room, we have some good flashbacks when reading through his POV chapters in the book, and there's no mention of her at all. Well, it shoots that theory right between the eyes. Another idea that cropped in my mind was Summer Hall. It's an old destroyed castle, so maybe that would be a place she danced, since at least one king and prince died there. But despite Summer Hall literally having hall in the name, I don't think it's the high hall of the kings who are gone, considering only one died there. The more likely way, or perhaps more lore-friendly, might be that she went to Oldstone and danced with her ghosts there. Like Summer Hall, it's an abandoned fortress, so the walls are probably crumbling. Kings were there, and there could be ghosts of those she remembers and those she never knew. No matter how I lay it out though, I feel like all of these theories are kinda stretching. Hell, for all I know, she pulled a Tommen, except while she was falling, she was busting a move. Anyway, I think I'll call it here. It was fun talking about the most popular songs in Game of Thrones, but we didn't talk about all of them. So if you're interested in a deeper dive to some of the other songs, such as A Bear and the Maiden Fair, Dornish Man's Wife, or It's Always Summer Under the Sea, let me know, and please, like, share, and subscribe. Have a good day, and be safe out there.